Before shiny coins jingled in pockets, life in ancient Britain was very different. People did not use money as we know it today. Instead, they traded goods directly with each other. This system is called barter. A farmer might trade a sack of wheat for a new clay pot. A skilled hunter could exchange a deer skin for a well-made axe. This way of trading worked for many centuries. It was a simple system, built on trust and the needs of the community. People knew the value of everyday things, from food to tools, and they exchanged them fairly among themselves. However, bartering had its problems. Imagine you were a fisherman with a huge catch of fish. You needed a new pair of shoes. But what if the shoemaker didn't want any fish? This was a common issue. It was often hard to find someone who had what you wanted and also wanted what you had to offer. This made trading complicated and slow. The value of goods could also change with the seasons. A basket of berries was very valuable in winter, but not so much in the summer when they were plentiful. This uncertainty made it difficult to build up long-term wealth. To solve these problems, people started using special items as a form of early money. These items were things that everyone agreed were valuable. In Britain, these included things like salt, which was used to preserve food. They also used livestock, like cows and sheep. Later, they began to use metal. Rings, bracelets, and even simple bars of bronze and iron were used in trades. These were easier to carry than a cow and could be divided into smaller pieces. These proto-currencies were a big step towards the idea of a standardized form of money that everyone could use. This brings us to the very edge of coinage in Britain. The use of metal bars, particularly iron ones, became quite common. Archaeologists have found bundles of these iron bars, often called sword money, at ancient sites. They were all made to a similar weight and size. This shows that people were thinking about standardization. They understood that for trade to be easy, the money needed to be consistent and reliable. This groundwork of using valuable, standardized metal objects paved the way for the arrival of the very first true coins on Britain's shores, a revolutionary idea that would change the island's history forever. The idea of making coins did not start in Britain. It traveled across Europe from the ancient Greek world. Around 100 BCE, Celtic tribes living in Britain began to make their first coins. They were copying coins they had seen from far away. Gallic tribes in what is now France were already making coins. These Gallic coins were themselves copies of beautiful gold and silver coins made for Philip II of Macedon, the father of Alexander the Great. It is quite amazing to think that a design from Greece traveled all that way. It was passed from tribe to tribe until it finally inspired the first coins ever made in Britain. These first British coins were not made of silver, but of gold, and a mixture of gold and silver called electrum. They were quite chunky and did not look like the flat, round coins we use today. The designs were very abstract and artistic. The original Greek coins had a portrait of the god Apollo on one side and a horse-drawn chariot on the other. As the Celtic artists copied these designs, they became more and more stylized. The face of Apollo might become a series of crescents and dots. The chariot and horses transformed into a single dynamic horse with flowing lines and patterns. It was not long before silver coins appeared alongside the gold ones. These were smaller coins, known to collectors today as units and minims. They were more practical for everyday transactions. The first tribes to make these silver coins lived in the southeast of England. Tribes like the Atrebates, the Catuvellauni, and the Iceni all began to mint their own unique silver currency. Each tribe's coins had their own special style. This was a way for tribal leaders to show their power and identity. The coins were like tiny metal flags, announcing who was in charge of a particular region. The designs on these early silver coins are fascinating. An Iceni silver unit, for example, might show a very stylized horse on one side. On the other side, instead of a human face, there might be a complex pattern of pellets, leaves, and wreaths. Sometimes the name of the ruler would be included in abbreviated Latin letters, like Icen for the Iceni tribe. These coins were not just for buying and selling, they were powerful symbols of sovereignty and wealth. They marked the beginning of a new era in Britain, where value could be held in a small, beautifully crafted piece of silver. In 43 CE, everything changed. The Roman army invaded and conquered Britain. The Romans brought with them their own highly organized and sophisticated way of life. This included their money. Roman coins quickly replaced the artistic Celtic ones. The main silver coin of the Roman Empire was the denarius. It was a coin that was known and accepted from the deserts of Egypt to the misty shores of Britain. Suddenly, a person in a British town was using the same money as a soldier on the German frontier. This connected Britain to a vast continent-spanning economy in a way it had never been before. The Roman denarius was very different from the Celtic coins it replaced. It was a standardized coin, produced in huge numbers at official mints. Roman coins were tools of propaganda. On one side, there was always a portrait of the ruling emperor. This was a powerful way to remind everyone, even in the most remote provinces, who was in charge. The emperor's face was on every transaction, a constant symbol of Roman power. The portrait was usually very realistic, showing the emperor with his official titles written around the edge. This was a world away from the abstract patterns of the Celts. The other side of the coin, the reverse, was used to celebrate Roman achievements. It might show a god or goddess like Fortuna for good luck, or Mars for military victory. It could also show famous buildings in Rome, or commemorate a successful military campaign. For example, a coin might have the word Britannia on it, perhaps with a figure representing the new province. This told the story of the empire in metal. As emperors came and went, the coins changed, creating a timeline of Roman history that we can still study today by looking at the coins they left behind. For almost 400 years, Roman silver coins, like the denarius and the later Antoninianus, were the main currency in Britain. They were used for everything, from paying soldiers and government officials to buying food in the marketplace. Hoards of these Roman silver coins are still found by archaeologists and metal detectorists across Britain. These buried treasures give us a snapshot of the wealth and turmoil of the times. They show us that Britain was a fully integrated and important part of the mighty Roman Empire, all thanks to a small, powerful silver coin. After the Romans left Britain around 410 CE, the economy collapsed. Roman coins disappeared from use, and people went back to a system of barter for a long time. It was a period of great change and uncertainty. New groups of people, the Angles, Saxons and Jutes, arrived from northern Europe. For about 200 years, coins were not really used. Then slowly, as new kingdoms were established, the need for money returned. Around the year 600, small, thick silver coins began to appear. We call these coins scetters, an Old English word for wealth. They were the ancestors of the famous English silver penny. These scetters were fascinating little pieces of silver. Their designs were a mix of leftover Roman ideas, Christian symbols, and Germanic animal art. Some might have a crude copy of a Roman emperor's head. Others had strange bird-like creatures or mythical beasts. They were not standardized like Roman coins. Different kingdoms and even different towns produced their own unique styles. This makes them very interesting to study, as they show the diverse and creative cultures of the early Anglo-Saxon period. They were a sign that trade and society were becoming more organized once again. The big change came in the late 8th century. Powerful Anglo-Saxon kings like Offa of Mercia introduced a new coin. It was a broader, thinner silver coin that we call the penny. This new penny was a huge success. It was based on a Frankish coin called the denier, which shows the close connections between England and mainland Europe at the time. King Offa's pennies were of a high quality and had beautiful designs. Some even had a portrait of the king, a clear statement of his royal authority. For the first time since the Romans, England had a single, reliable silver currency. This new silver penny would dominate English currency for the next 500 years. Even when the Vikings began to raid and later settle in parts of England, they did not replace the penny. Instead, they copied it. Viking leaders in the Danelaw, the area of England they controlled, minted their own silver pennies. Some of these coins blended Viking symbols, like Thor's hammer, with Christian crosses. The design of the penny continued to evolve. Kings like Alfred the Great and Edgar the Peaceful issued pennies with their name and the name of the moneyer who made the coin, ensuring quality and accountability. The silver penny was the foundation of the English economy. Section 5. Norman and Medieval Times. New coins for a new kingdom. When William the Conqueror and his Normans took control of England in 1066, they didn't get rid of the Anglo-Saxon silver penny. They knew it was a good system, so instead, they took control of it. The Normans centralized the minting process, making sure all coins were made to a strict standard of weight and silver purity. The design was changed to show the new Norman king's portrait facing forward. On the reverse, there was usually a cross design. This cross was not just a religious symbol, it was also a practical guide. It made it easy to cut the penny into halves or quarters to make small change, creating half pennies and farthings. For a long time, the silver penny was the only coin made in England. This could be inconvenient. Imagine trying to pay for something very expensive, like a horse or a piece of land, with thousands of tiny pennies. It would have been very difficult. As trade and the economy grew during the medieval period, there was a need for larger coins. In 1279, King Edward I started a major reform of the country's coinage. This was a huge moment in the history of British money. He introduced several new silver coins, including the groat, which was worth 4 pennies. The new groat was a big, impressive silver coin. It made large transactions much easier. At the same time, Edward I also introduced a half-penny and a farthing, a quarter-penny, as their own separate coins. This meant people no longer had to physically cut up their pennies to make change. This recoinage was very important. It created a modern and flexible currency system that was much better suited to the growing medieval economy. The designs were also improved, with a more realistic portrait of the king and clearer lettering. These new coins were used all over the country. The system established by Edward I lasted for centuries. The silver penny, the groat, and the half-groat became the familiar coins of daily life for people in medieval England. The quality of the silver remained generally high, which made English coins respected throughout Europe. Merchants from Italy or France were happy to accept English silver in payment for their goods. The coins from this period tell us a lot about the increasing wealth and stability of the kingdom. The journey of British silver had moved from a single penny to a whole family of coins, fit for a thriving nation. Section 6. Tudors and Stuarts. Wealth, power and turmoil. The Tudor period from 1485 to 1603 was a time of great change, and this was reflected in the nation's silver coins. The first Tudor king, Henry VII, introduced 2 very important new coins. One was the gold sovereign, but the other was a new silver coin called the testoon. The testoon was the first English coin to feature a real, lifelike portrait of the king, rather than a stylized one. It was worth 12 pennies, and it was the forerunner of the shilling. This new, realistic style of portraiture showed the growing influence of Renaissance art in England and the power of the new Tudor dynasty. However, the story of Tudor silver is not all about fine art. Henry VIII is famous for something called the Great Debasement. To pay for his lavish lifestyle and expensive wars with France, Henry ran out of money. His solution was to cheat. He ordered the mints to reduce the amount of silver in the coins and replace it with cheap copper. As time went on, the coins contained less and less silver. People nicknamed Henry Old Copper Nose because the silver plating on the nose of his portrait would often wear away first, revealing the reddish copper underneath. This caused huge economic problems and a loss of public trust in the currency. When Henry's daughter, Queen Elizabeth I, came to the throne, she made it a priority to fix the currency. In 1560, she began a great project to recall all the debased coins and replace them with new ones made of fine, pure silver. This was a massive undertaking, but it worked. It restored faith in English money both at home and abroad. Elizabeth I's reign saw the introduction of a full range of silver coins, from the tiny halfpenny to the large silver crown, which was worth 5 shillings. For the first time, coins were also machine-made, using presses that created much rounder and better-looking coins than the old hammered method. The Stuart period that followed was marked by the English Civil War. This conflict had a fascinating effect on coinage. Both King Charles I and the parliamentarian forces needed money to pay their armies, so they set up emergency mints all over the country. This led to a huge variety of siege pieces. These were coins made in desperate circumstances, sometimes from silver plate donated by supporters and crudely chopped into squares or diamond shapes. They were then stamped with a simple design. These raw, urgent pieces of silver tell a dramatic story of a nation at war with itself. Section 7. The Industrial Revolution, the Great Recoinage. By the late 18th century, Britain's silver coinage was in a terrible state. The government had not issued many new silver coins for a long time. The silver coins that were still in circulation were often very old and worn smooth. Many were also fakes, made by counterfeiters. To make matters worse, the value of silver bullion had risen, so it was worth more as raw metal than as coins. People would melt down the official coins to sell the silver. The country was becoming a modern industrial power, but its currency was a mess. There was simply not enough official silver money to go around. This shortage of small change was a huge problem for the new factories and businesses of the Industrial Revolution. Factory owners needed to pay their workers, and shopkeepers needed to give change to their customers. In the absence of official coins, many businesses took matters into their own hands. They produced their own private tokens, made of copper or sometimes silver. Even the Bank of England did something unusual. They took large Spanish silver dollars, known as pieces of 8, and counterstamped them with a small portrait of the British King, George III. These were known as dollar-sized tokens and were a temporary fix for a major crisis. The situation could not continue. After the Napoleonic Wars ended in 1815, the government finally took action. It planned a massive reform of the entire currency system. This was the Great Recoinage of 1816. The plan was to recall all the old, worn silver coins and issue a completely new set. A brand new, steam-powered Royal Mint was built on Tower Hill in London to produce the vast number of coins required. This was a defining moment. Britain was moving on to the gold standard, meaning the value of its currency was fixed to gold, but silver coins were still essential for everyday life. The new coins issued from 1816 were modern, beautiful, and standardized. The silver coins included the half-crown, the shilling, and the sixpence. They were all made to a specific weight and were 92.5% pure silver, a standard known as sterling silver. The designs were created by a brilliant Italian artist named Benedetto Pistrucci. His most famous design, showing St. George slaying the dragon, was used on the new gold sovereign and the silver crown. This great recoinage gave Britain the reliable and modern silver currency it needed to power its empire and its industrial economy through the 19th century. Section 8. The Victorian Era, an empire cast in silver. The long reign of Queen Victoria, from 1837 to 1901, was the golden age of British silver coinage. The coins produced during this era circulated across a global empire on which the sun never set. A shilling spent in London could be recognized and used in Canada, Australia, or South Africa. These coins were a powerful symbol of Britain's economic and political dominance. The silver used to make them came from mines all over the world, but they were all brought back to London to be turned into the currency of the empire at the Royal Mint. which continued to use the latest steam-powered technology. Throughout her reign, Queen Victoria's portrait on the coins aged with her. We can see her change from a young girl to a powerful monarch, and finally, to a veiled widow. The first portrait, used from 1838, is the young head. Later came the Jubilee head in 1887 to mark her 50th year on the throne. The final portrait was the old head or veiled head, introduced in 1893. These changing portraits allow us to follow the Queen's life story through the coins in people's pockets. It made the currency feel personal and connected the public to their monarch in a very direct way. The Victorian era saw the introduction of a few new silver coins. One of the most interesting was the florin, first issued in 1849. It was worth 2 shillings or 1/10 of a pound. This was an early experiment with decimalization, the idea of a currency system based on units of 10. The first version of this coin became known as the godless florin because the words Dei Gratia, meaning by the grace of God, were left out of the Queen's titles. This caused a public outcry, and the phrase was quickly restored on later versions. Another famous Victorian silver coin was the double florin, introduced in 1887. It was worth 4 shillings, but it was unpopular with the public. It was very similar in size to the crown coin, which was worth 5 shillings, and people often got them confused. It was soon withdrawn from circulation, making it an interesting but short-lived experiment. By the end of Victoria's reign, the system of silver coins was well established and highly trusted. From the small 3p to the large crown, these sterling silver coins were a daily feature of life and a shining symbol of the wealth and stability of the British Empire. Section 9. The end of an era. Silver's final blow. The 20th century marked the beginning of the end for silver in British circulating coins. The First World War from 1914 to 1918 was incredibly expensive. The government needed to pay for the war effort and also pay back huge debts to countries like the United States. The price of silver on the world market was also rising dramatically. This meant that the silver metal in the coins was becoming worth more than the face value of the coins themselves. This is a dangerous situation for any currency, as people have an incentive to melt the coins down. The government had to act. In 1920, a historic decision was made. The sterling silver standard, which had been used for centuries to guarantee that coins were 92.5% pure silver, was abandoned. From that year onwards, new silver coins were made with only 50% silver. The rest was a mixture of other metals. The coins looked the same, but their intrinsic value was much lower. This change saved the government a lot of money, but it was a sign of the changing economic times. Britain was no longer the world's dominant economic power, and the age of precious metal in everyday money was drawing to a close. The Second World War, from 1939 to 1945, delivered the final blow. The war was even more costly than the first, and Britain once again had massive debts to repay. Every resource was precious, and silver was needed for industrial purposes, such as in photography and electronics. In 1947, the government decided to remove all silver from circulating coins. The coins that looked silver, like the shilling and the florin, were now made from a copper-nickel alloy called cupra-nickel. This metal was durable and had a silver appearance, but it contained no precious metal at all. The long history of silver in the pockets of ordinary British people had finally come to an end. Today, silver coins are no longer used for everyday shopping. However, they have not disappeared. The Royal Mint continues to produce beautiful silver coins, but they are now made for a different purpose. They are created for collectors and investors. These modern coins, such as the Silver Britannia, are struck in very high purity silver, often 99.9% fine. They are legal tender, but their real value lies in their precious metal content and their beautiful artistic designs. They are a continuation of Britain's long and proud tradition of silver coinage, a tangible link to a history that began with the first Celtic tribes copying a Greek design over 2,000 years ago.